Hello, friends. Uncle Marv here with a brand new episode of the IT Business Podcast, the first for 2023. And it is our usual spot, Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern. We are doing the live show presented by NetAlly and Computers Done Right. Tonight, I am joined by Akarsh Vinod. You may remember him from episode 400 where we talked about the side hustle entrepreneurship. Akarsh, how are you?
I'm doing great. And what episode number is it now?
I don't know, 480. I don't know.
Wow, almost 100 episodes later. Look at that.
Yeah. I should always check that before I get started, but I don't. But yeah, we are actually this is probably going to be 465.
Okay.
So
Okay. I was
that
hoping to
is
get that coveted 500 spot.
oh well, you actually got the first spot in 2023. So let me be the first to ask you, how are you doing in the new year?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. I had a very relaxing holiday in Hawaii because my in-laws live there. So it's always, great opportunity to visit. So just relaxing on the beach. My sister-in-law took me on a crazy hike recently, so that almost killed me. But besides that, it's been relaxing.
So a crazy hike in Hawaii. So I assume there was mountains or volcanoes involved, right?
Yeah. No volcanoes, luckily, at least no active ones. But we did climb to the summit of a mountain for New Year's Eve so we could see the fireworks across the entire island. I mean, the view was great. The hike was grueling. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
See, that's not fun to do on Christmas Eve. But anyway, but you got to be in Hawaii. So how long have you been there? Did you miss out on all of the cold spells that the US got?
Yes, I luckily missed out on that whole whatever it was called, the bomb cyclone. Um, I mean, I live in California anyway, so it's not really gonna get that cold. But we are apparently flooding right now today in the Bay Area, and I'm missing that too, luckily. Instead, I just get the Hawaii rains, which is still a lot. But yeah, the soil is apparently saturated, completely saturated in the Bay Area, and so it's been raining for like a week or two, so I've heard.
Hmm.
But I've missed all of that, and I'm just here in sunny/rainy Hawaii.
All right. Well, I'm here in sunny Florida, and it has not rained in a while, and I'm pretty happy with the temperature right now. Oh, it just dropped. It's now 77 degrees.
Oof, cold.
I may have to tidy up on the way home. So, all right, Akarsh. Well, we had you on back on that episode 400, and you were in the midst of this Indiegogo campaign, and you had talked about the the whole concept of starting an idea from scratch and funding it and all the things that you learned as an entrepreneur in terms of how to de-risk and things of that nature. And this, what I'm holding in my hand for those that are watching the video, is the product. This is your Deal Node speaker. And I did order through the campaign, and I ordered a set of three, and they came in actually right after Christmas.
Oh, I'm sorry. I shipped them all like the week after Thanksgiving, and I was like, I hope it makes it to people before Christmas. But yeah.
Yeah. So why don't we refresh everybody's memory about these speakers? These are called Deal Nodes, but they're not your average speaker.
Yes, they are not. So, I mean, I think just about every person who makes a product, is able to see a hole in the market, see something that their product does that others don't. So I'm, of course, biased, think that my product is the most unique thing in the world, and I love it. But the problem I was really trying to solve here that makes these speakers different kind of comes from two sides. So when you think of your traditional wireless speaker, most of those speakers are Bluetooth, right? And Bluetooth only really allows you to play to one speaker at a time, one device at a time. So usually you get these portable Bluetooth speakers, you carry them around everywhere, you listen to your music out loud, and now you have your phone in one hand and your Bluetooth speaker in the other, and you're walking around the house. Then you've got the speakers that can actually do multi-connection stuff. And those tend to be Wi-Fi based, but those speakers are always really high tech, really complex. they require you, to use them. You had to download an app, then create a login in that app, and then in the app log in to all of your audio services like Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, whatever, and then take, another 10 to 15 minutes actually setting up the speaker, and doing all this stuff, enabling the voice assistant on the speaker or doing whatever, right? They're jam packed with all this extra technology. They're very complex. And so they really only speak to affluent, tech enthusiast audiophiles with big homes, right? Like this very particular high end kind of aspect. And like Sonos, right? That's a market leader on that side of things. So I kind of looked at both these sides and I'm like, is there a way to make a speaker as simple to use as a Bluetooth speaker, right? Just plug and play, just connect to it, it just works, while making it, more cost effective, more easier to use, uh, and more that something that, people aren't daunted by, but can just anyone can do it. Compared to like the Sonoses and stuff, right? I mean, just more accessible. So that's really what makes DeoNode unique, is it's a multi-speaker solution, not a single speaker, but it's a multi-speaker solution that is very simple and very affordable, but still has the flexibility of doing all that multi-speaker stuff you could imagine doing. Um, and yeah, so that's the speaker in a nutshell.
All right. And I did get a 3 set. So I do have 3. I have the one that I'm holding here in my hand in front of the screen. I actually have one behind me on the set. And then I have a third on the other side of the room. And I'll say this, when I first got them and I saw them, I said, this looks a little more complicated than I thought they were going to be, mainly because of the Apple AirPlay, which I'm going to start with the stuff I don't like first. and probably that's just me because I've never done it. Like you mentioned, Bluetooth has been the way that most of us have connected to speakers, and you're just used to doing that. You go in, you hit Bluetooth, you hit your speaker, and you go. And you do it with your head, the earbuds and all of that stuff. But trying to connect 3 speakers, that kind of threw me for a loop at first. And not that it was hard, it just was a little different thinking.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's been one of the big aspects, right? A lot of So when you're starting a consumer e-commerce company, right? Let's say that's really what I'm starting. There's kind of 2 types of them. There's one, which is you're selling something everyone is familiar with, like a t-shirt or stickers, mugs, things like that. And you're just a little bit more creative with what it is. But everyone can look at it and they can just kind of understand what it is. You know how to wear a t-shirt, you know how to stick a sticker on, your water bottle or whatever. And you're really just buying the theme of what people are selling. And then there's the other side, which tends to be like on the, consumer electronics, or if you're really trying to make something that is a little bit more complex, a little bit newer, of a concept. And that side of things has a different muscle, right, that you need to exercise, which is customer education. And that's been one of those things I kind of realized early on, but it's still a growing learning process of how best to educate your customers on how the thing you're selling, how to use it, how is it unique, how do you kind of rewire their brains a little bit for something new. And that's always been a challenge. And I totally agree, right? When you're really familiar with something, even for me, switching from Excel to Google Sheets has been hard, even though I have a lot of friends at Google who argue with me that Google Sheets is just simpler. And I'm like, but it's so complex when I'm used to you doing things the way Excel does
Right.
it. Um, so I totally agree, and I can see that, and I knew that was going to be an issue. One of the things early on, to keep with the theme of just entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurial journey, learning, right? Like how just learning how to do these things. Um, One of the early steps I'd taken when it came to customer education was like, okay, how do I show people before they purchase just how to use the speakers so they can see how simple it is? And I started with just kind of low hanging fruit. Let me just do screenshots on your phone and kind of be like, step 1, you do this. Step 2, you do this. Step 3, you do this. Step 4, play your audio, right? Um, and I had that on my website on a very specific, like, page on my website. And I think that was helpful as a starting point. But then there came the process of like, okay, some people don't want to go to different pages on your website. They kind of want to see things right there. So I try to integrate that into my landing pages, kind of put that somewhere, put links to those pages to the how it works page kind of within the initial thing people are looking at when they're choosing to buy the product. The next step was, okay, when people buy the product, how do you show them how to do stuff? And of course, there's a user manual. People are used to using a user manual. But I kind of realized early on too, like a user manual is a lot of pages. A lot of people don't even really read that stuff. So I try to make my user manual as easy to read as possible, but I also put a QR code there, front page, as well as when you open the box right there, there's a QR code. Here's how you set it up. And when you set it up, it also then takes you to another page that's like, here's how you use it. Here's other things you can use. And I try to create that flow that you typically see in like an app, right? Like the Sonos app, when you're setting it up, it might take you step by step on how to do stuff. And I wanted to create a similar experience to that. After sending out all these speakers, though, I've also realized some people are still getting hung up. They still are like, well, I can't figure out how to use this. I can't figure out how to set it up. So the thing I've been focusing on over the holidays now is, okay, how do I create these support pages, right? Support page right now basically just says, hey, if you have an issue, contact us. Here's a contact form. Again, something very easy to do, very simple for me to do and implement on my side, but it's not really necessarily the most helpful to be like, now you had to wait for me or someone else on the DO team to respond to you on like answering your issue. So this December, I've been focusing on creating video tutorials now. Other people who are, maybe a little bit, again, like hung up on how do you use it. There's some things that are working finicky. I'm going to start creating essentially a whole bunch of videos and stick those in my support page as well, put a troubleshooting guide, update the user manuals virtually so that people can access the latest ones, and just have those resources so that customers can feel like they can have the materials to educate themselves on how to use it. And I think over time, as people get more familiar with the DO way of doing things, they will kind of feel like, oh, this is so much easier to do than downloading an app and having to open up another third-party app every single time I want to turn on and off a speaker, or I want to turn the volume up, or I want to whatever. Because with AirPlay and what we're using, on the Apple side, it is right there on your control center. It is, yeah, it's like a nested menu, but you don't have to close the current app you're on, open up another one, and go somewhere. Right. You can always access it from wherever you are. So I really think eventually it'll be easier, but I'm always up for suggestions on how can you make that customer education piece even easier, right? Like videos, I think will be a great addition to what I have. But anything else too.
Well, I think that, like you said, I, was one of those people where, I'll be honest, I didn't look at the manual because I'm like, I can figure this out. So it took me probably a little longer than it should have, but it was listen, I'm a tech too, so I guess that kind of helps. For people that are not techie and not familiar with Apple, I could see that being a problem. But once you get in there and connect the devices, it's pretty straightforward from there. And then, of course, the hardest thing is making the switch. For instance, I do music from the lady. I don't know if I should say her name or not, in case you have an app or device that's using that.
There's no microphones right here.
Okay.
One of the, joys of DO, as well as they are voice assistant free.
So the Amazon. So I use Amazon Music, and I've got a couple of others, but that's the one I set up and tested it on. And then being able to, hit the button at the top that I didn't realize you have to hit that to get to the AirPlay menu to add those devices. So that was fine there. So I want to, since we talked about setting up and stuff, I also want to let people know that once you get it set up and once you get them connected, it's easy. And then you just go into your device. Now I'm going to play a song from my royalty-free stack because we can't obviously play copyrighted music. And of course, I've got the one speaker here, the one behind me. And I wanted to talk about two of the things that I really didn't like. So it's probably hard to hear, but so this is playing on all three speakers. And first of all, I've got it up a little high, but it's not fuzzy, not staticky. I think, which is always the big thing with those types of speakers when they try to hit the high point there. But they're all in sync. Like you're not going from one room to another and you can tell that it's off by a half a beat or something like that. These are all literally in sync every single time.
Yeah, that's one of those things where the few things we wanted to do with the speaker, it kind of comes down to simplicity aspect too, right? Is instead of trying to do 100 things like a lot of smart speakers and stuff try to do today, we wanted to just focus on the very core experience and try to make that as reliable as possible. There's always going to be some unique firmware bug here or there, and we're constantly, finding the small things and trying to quash them and releasing updates. But yeah, they are going to stay in sync. And they've actually even been, in order to use Apple's own AirPlay platform and stuff, that's one of those things Apple tests us and certifies us on. They can only be within a certain number of like, you know, milliseconds off of each other or whatever max at any time. And they test them for hours and stuff like that. So we're pretty good at holding, perfect sync between the speakers.
Now, when we talked last time, I did kind of ask you some technical questions about, what does it take to understand the nuances of doing something like that? Because most of us aren't going to learn how to create a speaker. So, are there things that you learned after the fact now that people have it, people are using it, it is mass produced? Um, are there some things that you're now thinking, oh, I wish it had done that, or maybe I should have done this way? Or has it just been absolutely fantastic what people have said about it?
Yeah, no, it's been great. I mean, one of those things when you launch a product, right, is you don't hear the positive feedback. No feedback is good feedback typically, right? But when a customer reaches out in customer support, it's because they have an issue. So luckily, out of the like 100 and I don't know 70-ish customers we've had so far, I've only gotten like 7 support requests at this point.
Really? Nice.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take that as a good sign. Granted, it's been Christmas. Maybe people are waiting until after, or during Christmas to open up some of the speakers, but it's also now after Christmas. I haven't gotten any support requests over the holidays at all, like from the past 2 weeks. And that's been great. So I'm hoping that's good news. And those support requests we did, they tended to be small things. I did manage to surface like a couple of new bugs that were small firmware things that my team's working on updating right now. But those are for very like fringe cases, right? On specific kinds of networks and stuff like that. So the others we were able to, clarify. And I realized that it was just kind of an issue of making my setup instructions a bit easier, or small things like that that just made things clearer. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing all this video series now this holiday season, so that kind of solves some of those issues too. So I'm hoping it's positive. One of those things as an entrepreneur is like you have to be very flexible on how how you decide to move forward with things, right? So you need to be ready to receive the responses, think about the right kinds of solutions. Not everything can be solved with like a make the product not do that, right? Some of it is how do you message things, or how do you create the right troubleshooting resources, or other aspects of all of that. And of course, one of the reasons I have a 60-day return policy is to help essentially ensure our customers, if they do run into something that's just so unbearable that they need to send it back, I want to give them the flexibility to do that too. But back to the beginning of your question, which is, kind of what's been different, what have I learned? Not just the response to the speakers, but also just kind of my own learnings since the Indiegogo campaign. There's kind of 3 aspects of, I think, in this kind of business, what you learn or focus on. There's the product design itself. Then secondly, it's really the operations, right? Manufacturing, shipping, logistics. And then the third aspect is the marketing and sales side of it. When I was launching the Indiegogo campaign, the main focus at that point, I'd already kind of focused a lot on product development. I had very decent prototypes, very similar to the final product, ready. And the entire focus at that time for Dio was just marketing, really figuring out how do we get the right kind of people to get their eyeballs on our Indiegogo campaign and see if they would be willing to support it and actually want to pre-order these devices. So at that time when I was talking to you, my mind was like so focused on like, okay, what are the messages? What are the kind of things that I've learned as an entrepreneur that's gotten me to a point where people can buy the product. But since then, there's been the whole third piece that has been a big learning experience too. And this is the side that I already had more experience with from my own career. But when you're doing it as an entrepreneur, it's still very different, which is operations. Um, when I kind of had the product prototypes done and I was like, we're ready to manufacture, uh, from initially, my manufacturer that I was working with was like, yeah, it's going to be just like a 3-month lead time. As soon as you place the order, 3 months later, it should be ready. Right. So the Indigo campaign ended in April. So we had, oh, sorry, May. So we had June, July, August. But for safety, I told people October. I was like, let's give it 2 months. Then we had a shortage and it got pushed to September. And I was like, okay, that's still within October. Then we had a shortage and it got pushed to mid-October. I'm like, okay, it's technically still October. Then we had a shortage and it got pushed to November, the beginning of November. And I was like, oh no. And then once that was ready, that was peak Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Christmas season for when you are getting products shipped from China to the US, getting your inventory ready. So not only does that make freight costs higher, it makes freight times way longer.
Right, right.
It took a 1 month freight. So, we ended up, I was very lucky working very closely. I identified a freight forwarder actually like about a year ago. And I'd kept kind of close relationships with this freight forwarder. And I was like, I know it's normally like a month freight. I know you can't control how long the ship's at sea, but is there any way you can get this stock to us by Thanksgiving, right? Like so that I can ship this off right after Thanksgiving. And that was like moving heaven and earth. That was already, pushing through the shortage issues and me pushing my manufacturer to get it ready. We had 2,000 speakers ready, like that we needed to manufacture. I ended up being able to push my manufacturer just produce 1,000 earlier than the rest
Hmm.
and just get that shipped off. And we got
Now,
that first 1,000 speakers in literally on like the Saturday of like Thanksgiving like weekend, right? Like
okay.
2 days after Thanksgiving.
So
And
let
then
me ask
yeah.
this real quick because you've glossed over some things with the shortage and the now all of this is, post COVID, and we know that we're still dealing with shortages. So how much of it was due to COVID? How much of it was due to this is a new product and they're maybe not set up to just roll off, 1,000 a week or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was definitely more the COVID aspect of it. One thing that people don't realize with consumer electronics, something that I think makes it very, very different from, again, like making a t-shirt or a mug or whatever, is that there are literally hundreds of components in that speaker. And each one of those components is manufactured in a whole different place, requires different types of raw materials, requires whatever, right? Like you're talking the speaker, which includes the speaker cone, the mount for it with all the screws, talking about every screw in that thing. You're talking about the plastic housing, the stainless steel grill, all of the electronics, 2 types of boards that go in the speaker, the power adapter, and all of the things that allow power to flow. And of course, all the wiring, circuitry, resistors, capacitors, everything that goes in there. Um, and so when we talk about a shortage, it doesn't even need to be a major shortage, right? Little, one small little thing out of the entire 100 is delayed by 1 week. Your whole production's delayed by 1 week, right? Or maybe longer. Sometimes it can kind of domino across. Uh, you have a COVID shutdown, right? In a country like China that just until recently, you had just a few COVID cases in the neighborhood, the entire neighborhood gets shut down. You have a few COVID cases in a factory, every factory in that area gets shut down, right? You lose the few days of production here and there as that's going on. And that's just makes for a very dicey supply chain climate. Now you compare that or you add that with the aspect that Dio is a very small company. And so when all of these small little shortages are happening here and there, right? They're affecting us. They're also affecting all the big players. They're affecting Apple, Microsoft, etc. But once those factories are up and running, the first thing they're going to make is the Apple products and the
Right.
Microsoft products and the Google
Yeah,
products.
and you're kind of sitting at the end waiting.
Exactly. So you had to wait until that whole back order is filled for those big customers until you're finally there and your small batch of like, 2000 units or whatever is, which is a very small batch compared to the hundreds of millions and stuff that these other players are making. Um, yeah, you're waiting until that is finally ready and that can be sent off. So that's really what's going on in the supply chain world. And yeah, and that's what it really was. Uh, it wasn't really so much an issue of like we found an issue with the speaker product itself, and now we need to remake stuff because uh, if you do your product development process right, by the time you're ready to produce, nothing in the actual hardware assembly changes. The only thing that really possibly changes is stuff in the firmware, like the software, because that can be edited at any time. Um, so we were working on firmware stuff all the way up until October. While the speakers were on freight, that is when we got our final certification from Apple for AirPlay. And by the time they got to the US, they were, allowed, they were fully certified, ready to sell. But the Apple stuff was really on the firmware side. So we were able to kind of carry that in parallel, but that didn't really block us in any way.
So let me ask that, because I know that when we talk about the Bluetooth stuff, we don't really worry about firmware. We don't worry about, is it compatible? Just about, you pull a Bluetooth device out of the box, it connects. This sounds like anytime there's an update, an iOS update or something, you may have to worry about stuff. Is that true?
I mean, theoretically, I shouldn't because theoretically, Apple's the kind of company that makes all their technologies work together flawlessly, right? Um, what has happened, I say theoretically, it's one of the reasons why we actually focused on Apple's AirPlay technology as kind of our first underlying platform that we joined. Um, and is because we really trusted Apple, and we do. Their certification process to use their technology is intense. They really try to focus on making sure your quality of your product is just perfect. Um, but that being said, when they launched iOS 16, this is one of the support cases we got very, very soon after. Luckily, the customer who put the support request in lived nearby where I live. And I ended up over a course of many emails finally being like, hey, can I just come over and see what's going on? I came over and it was great because he helped me find out that with iOS 16, so I think, so my whole team thinks after we looked at it, because we didn't make any changes to our speaker when it was working well on 15. In iOS 16, there's a very specific thing that you can do that makes the entire AirPlay thing just bug out.
Mm.
Um, and it is essentially when there's quite a few different AirPlay menus in iOS, like ways to access where all your speaker lists are and then tap the ones you want to play from. But the one that we recommend, which is on your control center, when you use that specific AirPlay menu and when you tap on multiple speakers, and then when you disconnect from all the speakers at the same time, you are not able to reconnect to any AirPlay speakers. And we've tested this with HomePods and with Sonos and with our speakers, and it's happening with every AirPlay speaker brand, which is why it seems like it's an issue from the OS side.
Mm.
And that was unfortunate because iOS 16 happened literally right when we got our inventory and started shipping out speakers. So that being said, we do have contacts at Apple by being an accessory partner with them. So I'm still waiting to hear back from them after the holidays, hopefully sometime soon, to see if they can confirm if this is on the iOS side, if there's just something about the AirPlay implementation packages they've sent us with the firmware side, some update to make there. So we'll have to kind of see how that goes. But again, it's a very fringe use case. And that's hopefully something one of the videos I'm going to be releasing we'll talk about. It's nothing major. You can still use the speakers if you just use one of the other AirPlay menus or restart your phone. I mean, that part's a bit, more of a hassle, but
Hey, that's the universal. Have you tried turning it on and off again, right?
yeah, exactly. So that's the thing that goes on. One of those problems with using a third-party technology and a third-party platform, right, and playing in that platform is you get all the benefits of it, but you also inherit all of the problems of it. And that comes back to the customer education piece, and helping users kind of understand how to play within those bounds. So,
All right. Now you mentioned, the Indiegogo campaign, which is, what you were in the midst of doing when we were last together. I purchased through that. Now the website is up. So now you're in that other part of marketing and sales because you were trying to do the ramp up and the recognition and all of that stuff. So now that it's almost to the point where you feel like the work is done, right? You got that first batch out, but I have to assume that it's almost like starting over again because now you've got to, keep the interest level up. Do you have any sense of a cycle that you're going to be into, or are you going to be looking at other ways to market and sell your devices?
yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head, Marvin. I when the Indiegogo campaign was done, I took a couple weeks off. I was absolutely exhausted, and I was like, I'm kind of done with something. And then I was in this period where it was like, okay, by the time the speakers get here, there's a few small things I need to do. I need to get the website ready for sales because all my sales so far had been through Indiegogo. I need to make sure I have a place to store the inventory. I kind of get kind of the logistics figured out, all the dates for freight forwarding and all of that. And then when I shipped off finally all of the speakers, I got my sales order system ready on the back end, Shopify, and all these kind of things. Um, I shipped out all the speakers and I was like, wow, I'm officially open for business. And when I realized that, it was like everything was starting over again. It was really like, I need to start getting on marketing. I need to start thinking about certain things. I spent the week after Thanksgiving before I shipped out speakers. I wanted to make sure certain aspects, certain things were just ready. One was a referral program so that people who want to refer to friends can get a benefit for doing so. And getting an email funnel so that, like a few weeks after you receive your speaker, you're kind of invited to join the referral program if you're interested in getting essentially, um, coupons to buy future speakers if any of your friends buy them too. Um, Getting also certain aspects of like getting reviews, customer reviews, right? Also, again, part of an email funnel template and really giving people enough time to use the speakers and then saying, hey, what do you think about them? Do you want to give future customers your review? And that's when I had to start thinking about like, oh my goodness, I need to get all these things done on top of finding new customers, running ads, doing all the stuff I was doing during the Indiegogo campaign. So when you mentioned, exploring kind of broader, right, funnels and stuff, uh, when I was running the Indiegogo campaign, I was kind of entirely focused at that point on building up a mailing list, which meant running Facebook ads. And it was all kind of consolidated into like Facebook ads that led to people joining the mailing list, that led to them getting informed when the Indiegogo campaign went live. Um, and that was hard, but that was like easier because you're not thinking about a bunch of other things. You're just kind of thinking about Facebook marketing, and they go out on the website, they read everything about your website, about your product, and they can choose to join the mailing list. It's that simple. Now I've had to think about like, okay, like again, how do I make sure people are telling other people, like people who've already bought the product, are having a good experience? They're able to tell other people through reviews and referrals about this, that they are hopefully having good enough experience to buy more speakers. Because usually people, first time customers, are probably just buying a few speakers, testing them out. And then if they like them, they'll buy more in the future and saying, I want this little corner to have a speaker. I want this little corner to have a speaker too. Um, and how do I kind of manage that aspect while also managing finding new customers, right? And finding new customers, still right now, my focus is Facebook, optimizing Facebook ads. Facebook includes Instagram as well. Eventually, it'll go into Reddit, it'll go into Nextdoor, it'll go into Twitter, it'll go into every other platform digitally. Um, so that's something where I'm already overwhelmed thinking about it, but slowly we'll get there and we'll ramp there. But the first priority at this point has just been getting those customers to have a good experience, getting them to tell other people about it, and really building up a core base that can trust the company before I start really seeking out a bunch of new people to add on to this family. So
All right. So is there the possibility, and I'm just throwing this out there, of a home shopping network, QVC, Shark Tank, maybe? Because I know a lot of people have had products for a while and need that next round of funding. they show up on Shark Tank. This could be
Yeah, I
something.
mean, if the question is really, is there a possibility? I mean, of course, there's always a possibility, right? Um, uh, is it part of the plan? Right. I think as an entrepreneur, I can't say right now, in 3 years, I will be on Shark Tank, right? Or if the opportunity presents itself, like, sure, why not? If it's the right thing to do at that time in the company. What I can say right now, though, for Dio is like, what the right thing to do, in my opinion, what the right thing to do right now is really, really focusing on getting the uh, relationship people have with the brand correct, right? So that is, again, the current customers, making sure that they have the right support that they need, making sure that they feel like they can trust purchasing more speakers and they feel like they can trust telling others about the speaker. And on the new customer acquisition side, right, marketing side, it is making sure that those people have enough material to understand what they're getting into when they decide to purchase a speaker, and finding the right kinds of people that are actually interested in the fit for this like kind of product, right? And learning about your customer, I think, is a lifelong journey, right? Like learning their needs, learning how to speak to them, learning the kinds of people you should really be targeting, the kind of use cases they're really focused and interested on. Um, and that's the current needs, I think, of Dio, is really building up that aspect of our company. And then if we're really getting into a nice solid rapport um, with our customers, having some steady amount of sales that we can manage, then we can think about scaling, right? Really trying to get even more visibility. Is that going to mean going on Shark Tank or on TV or running, different kinds of nationwide ads? Maybe. Will that just mean going onto like a platform like Amazon or the Best Buys and Walmarts and stuff? Maybe. But that's something I think I will have to um, decide as I see the ongoing, evolution of our relationship with our community.
All right. So you answered that question a lot more seriously than I thought you would.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I don't know. I've been
But
giving that a lot of thought too. As an
okay.
entrepreneur, I feel like you're trying to constantly be ready for every possibility, every
Yep.
eventuality, and just making sure you're set for it.
And of course, somebody could just ask to buy you out. So that that can happen as well. But I want to
Oh,
do
no
my
way.
part.
For some reason, I'm not even seeing that on the comments.
Um, yeah, the Happy New Year. So let me do
Oh,
my
look at
part.
that.
So I've put up on the screen for those that are watching the video, the website, and for those listening by audio, it will be in the show notes. doconnect.com is the site. And let me throw that up here on the screen. And it has, of course, the picture of the product and exactly the same as what I have here in my hand, the little square box. And of course, there's a section on how it works and talks about how to use your deal on the iPhone 10 or later. Compatible speakers, that's just shows that you play well with others. And the support page you talked about. And you can buy directly from here. And right now it's a 1-pack, a 3-pack, which is the one that I got, or a 5-pack. Now, did I ask you before how many of these things can actually play at the same time?
As many as your Wi-Fi network can handle.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a completely modular setup. So you can buy 3 right now, you can add 1 next year, and then 3 more the year after, whatever you want to. Um, at the end of the day, if you're using a super old router that can only handle so many connections at once, you'll find a limit. If you're using a modern router that's better at managing multiple connections, it'll probably work even better, and you can probably add even more. That being said, most modern routers, like, they can handle many, many, many devices. Like, you're probably not going to reach the limit with those.
Right.
And of course, if you have a Wi-Fi mesh system, it might work even better. There are some mesh systems that probably won't work too well with the way Dio stuff. It depends on how they manage their mesh, because these speakers are all networking with each other as well. So that might hurt stuff, but there might be there definitely are some systems out there as well that do work with the speakers on mesh, and that'll help you add even more speakers to your home. So stuff like that. I can't control every single person's network, but for the most part, they will work. on most modern systems in
All
general.
right. And again, pretty simple to use. I'm actually just controlling this. I've got it set up for both my phone and my tablet, and that's what I'm running right now. And let's see, is there a royalty-free music that I can play right here? Let me do, I think I can do this one. A background music. So from all three speakers. So there we go. All right. So Akarsh, thank you very much for agreeing to come on. I had hoped to get these earlier before
Yeah.
Christmas, and then maybe we could have gotten some people to get them as Christmas gifts, but
Yeah, I know. I've had a few customers who are just like, "Hey," like, right before Christmas, "Hey, do you think they're on their way?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, like, here's the tracking." I've tried to ship these out as soon as I could ship them out. Um, there was so that is definitely something I was a little bit disappointed in, and I've even told my manufacturer, how disappointed I was with just the shortages, but at some level, you can't even blame people, right? They're also struggling to get their orders from their manufacturers that make all those subcomponents and getting prioritized. But it is what it is.
it happens. And you're
But yeah,
new. You're one of the the small fish in the big pond, so we get that. People, if you go to the website and order, Akarsh has very graciously, I did not ask for this, but he actually created a discount code that if you go to buy and check out, when you add it to your cart and go to checkout, there is a spot to put a discount code in there, and it's very easy. Uncle Marv, one word. Put that in there, and what is that? What did you say? A 12% discount?
yeah, it's a 12% discount. And the good news is there's still plenty of time to get them now before next Christmas. So order now.
Or to get yourself a late Christmas gift. You didn't get what you liked, and you've got a Visa gift card for Christmas, or you went and returned something and got some. Go ahead and get yourself some speakers. Like I said, these are pretty nice. Here's the thing. So the reason I got three is because I really did want to see how they performed well together, because the whole idea of doing a surround sound for an event, and I've got this new space here. Of course, you probably don't know much about my new space, but I have this new meeting space where I've got my studio, and we're going to have people over, and having a little Bluetooth speaker in one corner of the room just isn't nice. But to have multiple speakers throughout the room here, or even the office, I did have them at the house. That's where I set them up first. So being able to go from the living room to the bedroom to the patio was pretty cool. And like
Yeah,
I said,
no,
they were
I
synced
actually
nicely.
it was really sweet. One of my customers recently just put a 5-star review on our website, which was really nice. Um, and he was basically like, I finally don't need to just like play one bad sounding speaker really loud, to hear it as I do things around the house. I can finally have small little, audio points across my house playing softly, and I don't like, I forget what it was, but I think something along the lines of like, I don't disturb the neighbors or something like that. But I do think there's something to be said for that. I think you mentioned earlier too, just you turn up Bluetooth speakers, they get loud and fuzzy. You turn up these speakers, they're crisp because they work over Wi-Fi, and there's a whole thing behind that, lossless audio. But you can even turn them really low all over, hear perfectly as you're doing stuff around the house without disturbing anyone else. My wife and I now have 6 speakers in our 1-bedroom apartment. And the reason for that is because now I can just kind of like keep the audiobooks and stuff I listen to very low, and it doesn't really disturb her, but it doesn't disturb my neighbors either. And I can switch them on and off between rooms as I go around, and it's just it's a nice experience.
And that was something we did not mention, that you don't have to play all of them at the same time. You can choose one and
Yeah,
just play that one, or two of the combination or whatever combination you want. And I think you mentioned that two people can actually play to different speakers.
Yeah,
So
exactly, right? Like if you're using, competitor products that require you to download an app to use their speakers, a lot of times if you have a guest in the house, they also need to download the app, they need to make a login, and then they need to be added to your home, and then they can control your speakers. And these ones, once the speakers are set up on your home Wi-Fi network, anyone on your Wi-Fi network can play to the speakers. You don't need to set up anything extra to make that work. And they can use different speakers in the home. You guys can wrestle for control over the same speaker if you really want to. And it's just a very easy to use and flexible experience. That's been the goal, at least. So
nice. All right. So once again, folks, doconnect.com. Go there, purchase your set, try them out. They're great. Although I do want to say one thing. Don't expect to have a house rage party with these. It's not going to be something where you're going to blast the neighbors. It's they're a good level. They're not super loud, but they are super clear. And sometimes I think that's even more important.
yeah, exactly. I mean, if you want something that's just super bassy and just goes like wow, wow, wow for all of the EDM, parties you're going to be throwing, then then definitely there are other things on that compatible speaker list that we have actually that would probably be better fits for those kind of use cases. The Dio nodes they're really meant to be your little audio access points around the home. Very crisp, very clear, but really for those, for those all day listening to audio kind of use cases to just have a pleasant experience, not necessarily for like a rager. So yeah.
All right. Car, stay with me here. We're going to do a little housekeeping here and come back and do Florida Man or Random Question right after this. You're listening to the IT Business Podcast, the podcast for every IT professional. IT Business Podcast is presented by NetAlly, the #1 ally of network professionals everywhere. Live stream funded by Computers Done Right. And thank you to our partners, Tom Bull, Kyle Kenyon, Clark Stockdale, and Synchro. All right. Now, did you prepare yourself for Florida Man or Random Question?
Yes, I do have a Florida man story that I would love
You
to share.
do. All right. Now, I should first ask, is this a recent one? Because we've been off for a couple of weeks and there were some doozies over the Christmas break. And I only will pick within the last 36 hours, but there were some great ones over the holiday break.
Yeah, this is from yesterday.
Yesterday? Okay.
Yes, it's definitely within the 36-hour window.
What do you got?
South Florida man cited after dog died to look like Pikachu from Pokemon. And it's got a picture too. It's so cute. I've been playing a lot of Pokemon over the holidays. I'm a huge Pokemon fan. I've been playing Pokemon Arceus, which I think came out like a year ago, but just getting around to it now because entrepreneurs have no time. So this definitely spoke to my heart right now. I love seeing a live Pikachu, but also that poor dog. I mean, who would do that to a dog? That is not. Oh, man.
Yeah, I saw that one. That was pretty funny. The one that I picked was from the Fort Myers area, and the headline is Florida man arrested for breaking into home, found naked in the bathtub. And apparently, the suspect was pounding on the front door of this house before entering at about 7 a.m. and set off the alarm. Neighbors called, and when police arrived, they only found a broken window, so they left. And then they received a second call because the people had come home and there were strange noises coming from the upstairs bathroom. And they returned and found Levi Scholing scrubbing away in the tub in the bathroom connected to the master or main bedroom, if you're trying to be politically correct. So kind of interesting that the person would break in and decide to clean up.
Yes, I mean, yeah, when you said found naked in the bathroom, I thought he like passed out, but no,
I
he was
know, that's
he
that's what
was
I thought
cleaning the
too.
tub. What a good fellow.
Yeah. So, of course, some of the past headlines that we did not read over the holiday. Florida man bites police officer after hitting another with a car, then dances in traffic. Uh, let's see. Where's the one I was looking for? There was one. Florida man impersonated a doctor. No, of course, I'm not going to be able to. Let's see. Florida man who faked being a doctor. Florida man accused of battery on a woman at a party. Shoots woman for twerking.
Oh my goodness, wow.
And then there was Florida man beats roommate's raccoon with a hammer and threatens to kill neighbor with sewing needle.
What?
And Florida man beats wife with Christmas tree when asked to do the dishes.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
So
that
Florida
was
man
fun.
does not stop during the holidays.
It does not. It
Yeah.
does not at all.
All right, ladies and
Well,
gentlemen, I want to thank you. And Akash, thank you for being the first guest of 2023. And we've got some great shows. Now, we will be returning to our regularly scheduled managed service providers tips, how to run your IT business. But one of the things that I got during our 2022 holiday poll was continued stories that are IT related. And, Akash, you had talked about, you're in tech, uh, becoming an entrepreneur. And so I'm having more of you on, having more people related to things that have to do with our money. There was somebody that asked to have somebody maybe related to the stress of being a business owner. And I think I've already found somebody. So we've got some great shows coming up. I've actually got talk started. Um, Lessons learned when you almost lose your cyber insurance. That is a story that we've got coming up. I've got a diversity panel coming up in February, and we are going to get cranking here in 2023. And of course, let us not forget that I am still on the watch for Rob T. Ray. Where does he end up in the channel? I sent Rob a message wishing him Merry New Year, and he did respond, but still no announcement yet of where Rob Ray will end up. And ladies and gentlemen, as I have said before, at the end of 22, I will say again at the beginning of 2023, Rob, when you get ready to make that announcement, give me a call and do that here on the IT Business Podcast. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you very much for joining us in this new year. And Akarsh, again, thank you for coming out.
Merry New Year. Always a pleasure to be here. Have a good one.
All right, folks, we will see you later. I've got a show next week. And until then, holla.